Albedo is a genius wearing the wrong body, fighting with stolen aliens, and losing to a teenager who treats the most powerful device in the universe like a toy. Every alien he transforms into is a mirror of Ben's, identical in species and inverted in color, and every transformation is a reminder that the copy will never be the original. Here is every Albedo alien explained. Albedo's true form. He is not human. He has never been human. Albedo is a Galvan, the same species as Azimuth, and his original body is a 5-inch amphibious genius whose intellect ranks among the highest in the galaxy. Before he became Ben Tennyson's Dark Mirror, Albedo was Azimuth's assistant, a junior researcher who worked alongside the Omnitrix's creator and contributed to the device's development with a competence that Azimuth himself acknowledged as exceptional. Albedo's grievance begins with a legitimate scientific ambition. He wanted to build his own Omnitrix. Not to conquer, not to destroy. To prove that the technology was replicable, that the device's design was not dependent on a single creator's genius, but on principles that any sufficiently intelligent Galvan could apply. Azimuth refused the request. Albedo built the device anyway. The copy worked. It connected wirelessly to the Omnitrix's DNA database, accessed the same genetic library, and provided functional transformations that were mechanically identical to Ben's. But the copy was synced to Ben's Omnitrix, which meant the device's default form was calibrated to the current primary user species. The primary user was a human teenager. Albedo became a human teenager. The transformation was not voluntary. It was a system default that Albedo's replica, Omnitrix, could not override because the replica was drawing its baseline configuration from Ben's device. When Azimuth arrived and removed the replica's core, Albedo was trapped permanently in Ben's form, a Galvan mind imprisoned inside a human body that craves chili fries and cannot stop eating them because the body's biological impulses are Ben's impulses, and Albedo cannot suppress what he did not evolve to control. Albedo's true Galvan form appears briefly across the franchise when he manages to temporarily override the lock, and each appearance is a glimpse of the person buried inside the punishment. The human prison. Albedo's default state is his worst nightmare given flesh. He looks like Ben Tennyson. Not approximately, not similarly, identically, except for two details that mark him as the copy rather than the original. His hair is white instead of brown. His eyes are red instead of green. The Ian version is the franchise's most elegant visual shorthand for a corrupted duplicate. The same face rendered in negative. And the physical resemblance is so precise that Albedo can impersonate Ben by wearing a brown wig and green contact lenses. A disguise so effective that Gwen and Kevin are fooled until they notice the tell. Albedo's left eye twitches when he lies. Ben's right eye twitches. The mirror flips everything. Albedo's experience inside Ben's body is the franchise's most sustained piece of body horror played for dark comedy. He hates the body. He hates its appetites. He hates that it craves junk food, that its reflexes are slower than a Galvan's processing speed should permit, that its senses are duller, that its cognitive bandwidth is a fraction of what his original form provided. And he cannot escape it. Every transformation he performs returns him to Ben's form when it times out, the human body snapping back into place like a rubber band, and the frustration of a genius scientist trapped inside a teenager's biology is the engine that drives every villain appearance Albedo makes. Negative, Humungousaur. This is the alien Albedo reaches for first, and the choice tells you everything about how he fights. Negative Humungousaur is Albedo's most frequently used transformation across Alien Force and Omniverse. A Vaxosaurian whose red-tinted color scheme and inverted Ultimatrix symbol mark it as a copy of Ben's version, while its combat performance demonstrates that the copy is operated by a different mind. Ben's Humungousaur fights through instinct and aggression, growing to maximum size and hitting the largest target in front of him. Albedo's Humungousaur fights through calculation, using the Vaxosaurian's variable size strategically, growing when mass is needed and shrinking when speed is required, treating the transformation as a tool with adjustable parameters rather than a blunt instrument set permanently to maximum. The difference reflects Albedo's Galvan intelligence operating inside a combat body. Ben uses Humungousaur the way a child uses a hammer, hitting everything as hard as possible. Albedo uses Humungousaur the way an engineer uses a hydraulic press, applying force with precision calculated to the decimal point. Negative Humungousaur's debut in Good Copy, Bad Copy is Albedo's first on-screen transformation, and the fight that follows establishes the dynamic that governs every subsequent Albedo encounter. The aliens are identical, the strategies are different. And the outcome depends not on which version is stronger, but on which operator adapts faster. If you are enjoying this so far, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment with the Albedo alien you think he used the best. Let us get back into it. Negative Diamondhead. The crystal body is the same. The Petrosapien DNA is the same. The shards, the shields, the regeneration, the molecular composition, all of it is indistinguishable from Ben's Diamondhead at the genetic level, but Albedo's negative Diamondhead fights like a fencer rather than a brawler, and the distinction is the gap between a teenager who learned combat through trial and error and a Galvan scientist who studied martial theory across multiple species before ever entering a fight. Albedo deploys Diamondhead in good copy, bad copy during his initial confrontation with Ben, and his crystal constructs are more geometrically precise than Ben's, his shard projectiles more accurately aimed, his defensive formations more structurally sound. The Galvan intellect inside the Petrosapien body applies engineering principles to a biology that Ben uses instinctively, and the result is a Diamondhead whose constructs look designed rather than improvised. Negative Diamondhead demonstrates that the Omnitrix aliens are not fixed in their effectiveness. The same DNA in different hands produces different results because the hands carry different knowledge, and Albedo's hands carry the accumulated scientific understanding of a species whose baseline intelligence exceeds anything Ben's human cognition can match. Negative Swampfire, and negative Big Chill. Albedo uses these two transformations as a tactical pair, and the pairing reveals a strategic sophistication that Ben rarely demonstrates with the same aliens. Negative Swampfire provides offensive flexibility, the Methanocian's combination of fire projection, plant manipulation, and cellular regeneration, giving Albedo a transformation that can attack at range, control the environment, and recover from damage simultaneously. Negative Big Chill provides stealth and intangibility, the Necrophrygian's ability to phase through solid matter and become invisible, giving Albedo a transformation that can bypass defenses, avoid attacks, and strike from positions that the enemy cannot anticipate or counter. Ben uses both aliens independently. Albedo uses them sequentially, opening engagements with Big Chill's stealth to gather intelligence and position himself advantageously, then switching to Swampfire's offensive capability when the strategic picture is clear. The sequential deployment is a combat doctrine rather than a random selection, and the doctrine reflects the Galvan mind's preference for information before action. Negative Spider Monkey. Speed, agility, and web generation in a body small enough to navigate environments that larger transformations cannot access. Negative Spider Monkey is Albedo's mobility alien, the transformation he deploys when the engagement space is too cramped for Humungousaur's mass, or too complex for Diamondhead's crystal constructs to navigate efficiently. The Arachnid Chimp DNA gives Albedo 6 limbs, enhanced reflexes, and the ability to generate webs from his tail that can restrain enemies, create traversal lines, and construct environmental obstacles that funnel opponents into positions Albedo has pre-selected. Albedo's use of Spider Monkey is characteristically tactical, where Ben's Spider Monkey swings and improvises, Albedo's Spider Monkey positions and traps, using the web generation to control space rather than just traverse it. Negative Rath. He uses this one when strategy fails, and the fact that a Galvan genius resorts to an apoplexian whose defining trait is uncontrollable rage tells you exactly how desperate Albedo has to be before he selects this transformation. Negative Rath appears during the final battle, Albedo's last stand in Alien Force, and the choice is a confession. The calculated approach is not working. The precision is not sufficient. The Galvan intellect that gives Albedo his edge in every other transformation is failing against an opponent whose unpredictability, Ben's instinctive combat style cannot be modeled or anticipated. Albedo reaches for Rath because Rath does not require strategy. Rath requires only the willingness to keep hitting until something breaks. And Albedo's frustration at this point in the narrative has reached a threshold where abandoning intellect in favor of violence feels not just acceptable, but necessary. Negative Rath is Albedo at his lowest, a genius who has been reduced to screaming in the third person, because every intelligent approach has been exhausted and the only option left is the one that requires no intelligence at all. Ultimate Humungousaur, Albedo's version. He invented the ultimate function and he debuted it with the single most devastating combat demonstration the franchise had produced up to that point. Albedo's Ultimate Humungousaur is not just the first ultimate form he uses. It is the first ultimate form anyone uses in the franchise, the transformation that introduces the evolutionary simulation concept to the audience and establishes the power tier that every subsequent ultimate was measured against. In the final battle, Albedo activates the Ultimatrix's evolutionary function for the first time, and the Humungousaur that emerges from the green flash is unrecognizable as the Vaxosaurian it evolved from. The body is covered in armor plating that extends across the head, torso, and limbs. The tail terminates in a spiked mace, and the hands have been reconfigured into biological missile launchers that fire bone projectiles with enough force to stagger any opponent the franchise has depicted to that point. The evolutionary simulation subjected Humungousaur's DNA to 1,000,000 years of worst-case scenario natural selection, and the result is a creature that has traded every non-combat biological function for additional weapons, additional armor, and additional killing capability. Albedo invented the ultimate function, and the fact that the franchise's most powerful transformation gimmick was created by the villain rather than the hero is the most telling detail about Albedo's character. Ben was given the Omnitrix and used it to help people. Albedo was trapped in the wrong body and built a device that forces evolution through simulated genocide to make himself strong enough to take the Omnitrix by force. Same technology, same DNA library, completely different philosophy. The Ultimatrix is the Omnitrix designed by someone whose relationship with power is defined by resentment rather than responsibility. Ultimate Spider Monkey, Albedo's Omniverse version. In Omniverse, Albedo's relationship with the ultimate function changes. He no longer activates ultimates as a last resort. He deploys them as his default, skipping the base alien entirely and transforming directly into the evolved form because the base forms are Ben's aliens and Albedo wants nothing to do with anything that reminds him of the teenager whose body he is trapped in. Ultimate Spider Monkey is Albedo's most frequently used Omniverse transformation, a massive gorilla-like arachnochimp whose enhanced size, enhanced strength, and enhanced web-spinning capability exceed the base Spider Monkey by a factor that the franchise frames as approximately 10 times. Ultimate Spider Monkey's body is built for combat in a way that base Spider Monkey is not, the agility of the original replaced by the mass and power of a creature whose evolutionary simulation determined that the optimal survival strategy for an arachnochimp facing extinction-level threats is to become larger, stronger, and more physically dominant rather than faster and more evasive. Ultimate Gravatak, Ultimate Rath, and Ultimate Arctiguana. Omniverse gives Albedo 3 additional ultimate forms that Ben never uses, making them exclusively his transformations and giving the villain his own roster of evolved aliens that the hero cannot replicate. Ultimate Gravatak is an evolved Galilean whose gravitational manipulation operates at planetary scale, the ability to increase, decrease, and redirect gravitational fields amplified by the evolutionary simulation into something that can affect entire landscapes rather than individual targets. Ultimate Rath is an evolved Apoplexian whose rage has been refined by 1,000,000 years of simulated warfare into something controlled rather than chaotic. A berserker whose aggression is directed with surgical precision because the evolutionary pressure is selected for rage that kills efficiently rather than rage that destroys indiscriminately. Ultimate Arctiguana is an evolved polar Manzardil whose ice generation operates at temperatures approaching absolute zero, a cryogenic output so extreme that the evolved form can freeze targets at the molecular level, stopping atomic motion entirely. Negative Armadillo and the Omniverse base forms. Albedo uses base-level aliens in Omniverse sparingly, reaching for them only when the situation does not warrant the energy expenditure of an ultimate activation, and the base forms he selects are chosen for utility rather than power. Negative Armadillo appears in For a Few Brains. More, as a transitional transformation, the Talpedan's drill arms and enhanced strength, providing a specific capability that the current situation requires before Albedo escalates to an ultimate. The franchise does not depict Albedo lingering in base forms because the character's narrative function requires him to operate at a tier above Ben's standard transformations. Albedo using base aliens would make him Ben's equal. Albedo using ultimates makes him Ben's superior on paper, which makes his repeated losses more dramatically satisfying because the audience watches a villain with better tools lose to a hero with better instincts. Ultimate Albedo. He evolved himself. The final and most disturbing form in Albedo's roster is not an alien transformation at all. It is what happens when a Galvan turns the Ultimatrix's evolutionary function inward and subjects his own DNA to a million years of simulated worst-case scenario natural selection. Ultimate Albedo, formerly referred to as Ultimate Gray Matter in the show's subtitles, is a hyper-evolved Galvan whose cranium has expanded to accommodate a brain so massive that his body can no longer support it without a mechanical hovercraft. His head is enormous, bulging outward with visible brain tissue, his limbs vestigial and tiny beneath the cognitive mass that the evolution prioritized above all other biological functions. The evolutionary simulation determined that the optimal survival strategy for a Galvan facing extinction-level threats is not strength, not speed, not armor, but intelligence so overwhelming that no physical threat can outthink it. Ultimate Albedo's design is a deliberate visual reference to Modoka from Marvel Comics, and the parallel is thematically precise. Both are geniuses whose pursuit of cognitive enhancement has consumed their bodies, leaving them trapped inside a hovercraft that carries a head too large and too heavy for the legs beneath it. Ultimate Albedo can fire energy beams from his third eye. He can generate force fields. He can project energy pulses. But his most dangerous ability is the one the show explores most thoroughly. When Ultimate Albedo absorbs Azimuth's intelligence in for a few brains more, adding the smartest mind in 5 galaxies to his already hyper-evolved cognition, the combined brain power grants him awareness of the Omniverse itself, a perception so vast that he can see every alternate timeline, every parallel dimension, every version of every reality simultaneously. The awareness does not make him more dangerous. It makes him less. The epiphany that comes with omniversal perception is that destroying Ben is meaningless because Ben exists in every timeline, and killing one version accomplishes nothing against the infinite versions that remain. The intelligence that was supposed to make Ultimate Albedo unstoppable instead makes him indecisive, paralyzed by a comprehension so total that action feels pointless. Ben reverses the procedure. Azimuth's intelligence is restored. And Ultimate Albedo, the most evolved mind in the franchise, is defeated not by a stronger opponent but by the realization that absolute knowledge is absolute paralysis. And that is every alien Albedo has used across 3 series and 7 years of franchise history. The pattern underneath all of them is the same tragedy told through a different color palette. Albedo has every tool Ben has. He has the same DNA library. He has the same transformations. He has the Ultimatrix, a device whose evolutionary function gives him access to power tiers that Ben's standard Omnitrix cannot reach. And he loses every single time because tools do not win fights. People win fights, and the person inside Albedo's transformations is a genius consumed by resentment, whose intelligence cannot compensate for the one thing he lacks. Ben Tennyson does not fight to prove he is right. He fights to protect people he cares about, and the difference between those two motivations is the difference between a villain who has everything and a hero who has enough. Albedo's aliens are red because the franchise color codes its morality, and red is the color of a mirror that shows you exactly what you are. Same aliens, different colors, different outcomes, and the outcomes are always the same because the colors were never the variable, the person was.